Let me go to my next guest right here, ladies and gentlemen. My first guest in studio. He is a Super Bowl champion. He is an Emmy Award-winning studio analyst who currently serves as host of Inside the NFL. He's my ESPN colleague on First Take, Get Up, Sports Center, NFL Live, and obviously he's a star host of the Pivot Podcast, one of the best podcasts going, period. He also thinks he can outdress me. He was right until today. The one and only Ryan Clark. What's up,
Hey,
man?
I told you that one was clean today. I told you. I was like, today he brought it.
Exactly. We got to get into a couple of things, man. Thank you so much for sitting here with me. But before we do any of that, I want to get into NFL free agency. The biggest stuff you saw in NFL free agency this week, was it Derrick Henry going to Baltimore? Was it Saquon Barkley going to Philadelphia? What stood out?
I think the first start is Kirk Cousins.
Okay.
Right? You know, listen, Kirk Cousins has been like the Darrell Revis of quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. He always gonna get the bag.
That's right, always.
But when Raheem Morris got there, the first thing he mentioned is, I don't have this job if they don't have bad quarterback play.
Right.
And we all thought it was going to be Justin Fields. But right away, Adam Schefter, all the insiders said they wanted Kirk Cousins. They go and make a splash right away. Bijan, Drake London. You look at Kyle Pitts, a defense that can play well. This team should win the NFC South and be a playoff contender. But ain't that when Kirk becomes Kirk?
That's right.
Right? So what did they see in him that says he's going to be the guy to take me to a Super Bowl? Or maybe for Raheem Morris, as a black coach on his second stint, he knows he has to win right away.
Right.
And so it's better to go out and get a dude who could do that for you immediately. I think my other thing is, though, the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
It's not the big moves.
They haven't done anything.
Yeah, it's not the big moves they did make. It's what they haven't done. And, you know, I think it's good. I think it's a plot against Southern Steve. You know what I'm saying?
I reckon you're right.
You know,
I reckon you're right.
if they don't build the expectations, you can't be like, just when you need them, that's when they fall.
That's right.
And so I think, to me, those are the two things that stick out more than anything. But obviously, you love Saquon. You also think about Derrick Henry, which I heard you talk about earlier as well.
Well, you look at Saquon in Philadelphia, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, and all of that stuff, and then you see him coming in and what kind of pressure he could ultimately take off of Jalen Hurts. Let's not forget about that as well. Do you look at Philadelphia and you put them a step ahead of San Francisco now?
No,
or not?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. One, the first thing is, we've watched San Francisco consistently be in that spot. Right? The move that Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts made 2 years ago surprised us all. None of us expected them to be that team, even after adding A.J. Brown. And we saw them fall kind of back down to earth last year without both of those coordinators. So to me, figuring out if Nick Sirianni is the guy to run it without those coordinators is important. And can Jalen Hurts be that same quarterback? And now you bring in Kellen Moore. Stephen A., we talked about Kellen Moore in Dallas.
That's right.
We talked about Kellen Moore in Los Angeles with Justin Herbert.
Right.
Right. And so what is he going to be to that offense? But when you look at that skill set, or those skilled players, group of skilled players, AJ, Devontae, Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley, to me the pressure's on Nick. The pressure's on Jalen. Yeah. If those two dudes don't produce with these,
you got to look at
players,
them differently.
It's on them. But also, what are you going to do defensively? Can those young defensive tackles step up? Can you find someone at the linebacker position? They need another corner, but I do love going out and getting C.J. Gardner-Johnson from Detroit and having some of that feel that brought you to the Super Bowl defensively.
Veering away from free agency for just a second, I had Micah Parsons on my podcast during NBA All-Star Weekend. And we did a long, extensive discussion about his future. Thinking about what Dallas didn't do. We know Dak Prescott's looking for his bag. We know CeeDee Lamb's looking for his bag. Micah Parsons is looking, he's eligible to get his bag now as well. Those are three guys that's going to be looking to be paid, one of, if not the highest paid at their respective divisions. When we look at Micah Parsons, how much is he worth? I'm not talking dollar signs per se. I mean, compared to the top guys at his position, where does he rank in your eyes?
So Michael Parsons is in the conversations of the T.J. Watts, the Myles Garrett's, the Max Crosby's, right? He's in that conversation, but we didn't see him show up in the playoffs this year. This year he was quiet. And as the season went along too, Stephen A., we sort of watched people be able to game plan around Micah. Dan Quinn wasn't moving him around. He wasn't having opportunities to get mismatched. And so you got to see if Mike Zimmer is going to put him in position to always have the matchup the way that Jim Schwartz did for Myles Garrett this year.
Right.
Because if you do that, when you're looking at Micah Parsons, to me, he's a 20-sack-a-year guy. But he got to show up against the good teams. He got to show up in the big games because that's when you get the money. And I think for him, that's what this year is going to be about. But he's worth everything that all of those other players I've mentioned.
But that's where I was going to. If you're Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones and you have an opportunity not to wait until next year and you could pay him right now, what do you do, Ryan Clark, if you're them?
I wait.
You wait.
I wait. Because you got to get CD done and you have to get Dak done. And CD's probably waiting on Justin. Right? Because Justin Jefferson should set the mark for wide receiver. CD's going to say, I need to be paid equal to what he's paid or something extremely close to him. And you got to restructure Dak's deal. You got to give him new money. You got to extend him because that salary cap hit isn't going to allow you to play Micah Parsons. Now, here's what's on the other side of that. What if Micah Parsons says, I am eligible. I've seen CD get paid. I've seen Dak get paid. I'm not playing football until I do. Is that
well, he told me he would never do that. He said, I'm not holding out. I'm showing up. I'm playing football. Under no circumstances would I ever hold out for money and not play. That's what he said.
Well, I'm going to tell you what. That's bad for negotiations, Stephen.
He should never told him.
Hell no. If I'm Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones, I'm saying we can do whatever we want. We got to pay him eventually, but he's always going to show up. And now, you want your team to feel that. You want your team to believe that. But it's about your bag, right? It's about business. And he's shown us in the first 3 years that he is and can be a difference maker, but can he be that difference maker? Can he be the difference maker? And that comes along with having a defense that finishes football games in important times. And they haven't done that in his 3 years there.
Transitioning back to free agency, do you feel Derrick Henry could do that for the Baltimore Ravens?
Not like you do. I don't know why. Like, when we did First Take, you are just, this is the move. This is what's going to do it.
I believe in them.
Stephen A., they were the #1 rushing team last year.
Right.
Todd Monken forgot that.
I know.
It's not whether or not they can be the same thing. It's whether or not you could stay authentically yourself when the fire and the heat rise. Right?
Have you seen anything in Derrick Henry that says he can't?
It's not Derrick Henry. I ain't seen Todd Monken do it.
Okay.
I ain't seen Lamar Jackson do it.
They ran the football 16 times in the AFC Championship game. 8 times it was Lamar Jackson. There's no way in hell they're doing that with Derrick Henry in the backfield.
You say that, but they were already the #1 rushing team in the league. And they were that by committee, whether it was Gus Edwards, Keenan Mitchell in the middle of the season, Justice Hill. They gave those dudes opportunities to run the football. You knew you had to take the dive or you had to watch Lamar on the pull. They didn't put that sort of pressure on the Kansas City Chiefs. Remember this. You start the second half, you give it to Gus Edwards, Justin Reed blows him up in the backfield. Then there's a jet sweep to Zay Flowers, which is tackled by Trent McDuffie. After that, Todd Monken was like, hell no, I ain't running it ever again.
Wow.
Why not? Yeah. Why not be physical with the team that showed you the week before against Buffalo? They can't stop the run. And so the only thing I could say that excites me about the Derrick Henry move is this. Maybe because he's a future Hall of Famer, you realize you got to get him the ball. And the other thing for me is during the season, if we get 3rd and 2, we don't have to run our franchise quarterback. We can turn around, hand the ball off to Derrick Henry, and know that he's our best short yardage option, not our franchise quarterback who's the 2-time MVP.
How concerned are you about the Buffalo Bills? We talk so much about Josh Allen, and he was supposed to be the heir apparent to Patrick Mahomes, but we look at Josh Allen right now. You lost Gabe Davis. We know Stephon Diggs wasn't happy at the end of the season. So who knows what that
window's
situation
closed on this team.
You think the window's closed?
Window's closed on this team. It has to be a new iteration of the Buffalo Bills. Think about the team they had. Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde. All of those guys were linchpins into what they were. Oftentimes we pointed to what Josh Allen could do, but we forget what Leslie Frazier was to this defense. We always go back to the 13 seconds Tyreek Hill play late in the game.
That was not his shining moment.
That was not his shining moment. Right. But when you look at what this defense was and you look at the totality of the year, this defense was really good. They put Josh Allen in position to make those plays. And now he's shown up in the playoffs, but I believe last year you have Kansas City at its weakest as we've seen it with Patrick Mahomes. You have them in Buffalo at Orchard Park.
Can't finish them.
And you can't finish it? When will you get that chance again? Not to mention, as you just said, the Baltimore Ravens got better. The Baltimore Ravens are a defense you didn't want to see.
Right.
Now, they have a new coordinator, but you think about the Roquan Smiths and the Kyle Hamiltons and the Marlon Humphreys, those guys are still there. And so I feel like the Buffalo Bills, we were waiting to win a Super Bowl after that epic divisional game against the Kansas City Chiefs, are no longer.
So there we look at the AFC North because we got 4 teams. Russell Wilson has arrived in Pittsburgh. They got weapons.
I'm supposed to be happy?
You should be.
I'm supposed to be happy?
Anything's better than Mitchell Trubisky, Mason Rudolph. I mean, I'm happy about it. Listen.
You're the worst Pittsburgh Steelers fan in the history of Pittsburgh Steelers fans. You be ready to jump ship.
That's not true.
You be talking bad about them as soon as you're ready.
Excuse me. At least I don't go visit with Mike Tomlin, sit him down on the pivot, and then go back and say, look, they ain't getting it done.
I got to do my job.
So do I. So do I. That's my point. But when you look at Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Baltimore, along with Pittsburgh, we know what those teams bring. But who can be a threat to Patrick Mahomes?
I mean, I think it's the Baltimore Ravens, one, right? You look at what the Baltimore Ravens are. Stephen A., we talk about the way that first half went, but we don't talk about L'Jarius Sneed making back-to-back huge plays to keep him out of the end zone. One was tackling Zay Flowers in the open field, and then he punches the football out. Right? The defense getting the pick late in the game on the pass to Isaiah Likely. Like, that team is in that game. They're right there. The Baltimore Ravens are not a team that has to have a complete overhaul to win. It's Lamar Jackson. In these moments, you got to show up like a 2-time MVP supposed to. Todd Monken, you can't swallow your playbook.
That's right.
When it's time. And so I think that that's obviously a team that's in it. I don't believe the Buffalo Bills are there. But you mean to tell me you don't think the Cincinnati Bengals with a healthy Joe Burrow?
I'm not counting out Joe Burrow, but I don't like the fact that they lost T. Higgins.
You know, Joe Burrow, I saw him this weekend at the fight.
Okay.
And he was talking about T. Higgins, and you could see it on his face when he was talking about how much he wanted him to be there, that was important to him. He understands. Listen, he comes from LSU, Stephen A., where he had all them boys. Justin Jefferson, Terrace Marshall, Jamar Chase. He understands what it is to be able to distribute the ball. He obviously wants Jamar there. He knows Jamar has to be taken care of, but he made a point to me to talk about T. Higgins. He made it a point to say how important he is, how much he wanted to get that done. And I think that's huge. I think that changes that team dramatically from the sense of, I only got one of them to worry about. I can double Jamar, and now T. Higgins doesn't have an opportunity to beat man coverage. So I do believe that's huge, but you probably just like I do, man. Joe Burrow is like that.
He's special.
Joe Burrow understands it.
Last question on all of this in regards to the NFL. I'm looking at the AFC West. Russell Wilson's gone. Sean Payton, you better have a plan because the way he treated Russell Wilson. And listen, I understand, but he shouldn't have done it. He shouldn't have done it.
I wouldn't. If I'm a quarterback and I'm worth anything, I've accomplished anything, I do not go play for him.
Because
he's behaving like a man that is still mourning his lover.
Because he doesn't have Drew Brees.
Because he doesn't have Drew Brees. Right. That's who he wants. He wants that relationship. He wants that sort of conversation. He never treated Drew Brees the way he treated Russell Wilson. And for all that you think Russell Wilson is no longer as a player, what he showed us last year, he's class. He has class. He's a professional.
Let me challenge you on that before we move on to you. Here's how I did it, and I differed with you on that. I wasn't saying you were wrong about what he was saying about Sean Payton's behavior, because there's no excuse for it. You can't do that. The flip side to it, however, is this. You hear these stories about Russell Wilson. Multiple parking spaces, side entrances, your own office, being a prima donna, distant and separate and apart from your team. Sean Payton walks in there. Day one of the press conference, he said those days are over. So clearly he was told and informed about this. Plus he was working for Fox Television before he took that Denver Bronco job. So he was hearing all of this from the Jay Glazers of the world and others. So he's hearing all of this. Then you look at Nathaniel Hackett, who he threw under the bus and disrespected. It was a contemporary. But I said to myself, Sean Payton's been around for almost 40 years in the NFL. He's never done that. Why would he do this? Is it possible that Nathaniel Hackett, he thought, violated the code that was established in the NFL of not letting these kind of things happen, and he was so appalled by it that's why he acted that way. What do you say to all of that?
Well, I say this, though. You got to remember, Nathaniel Hackett was coming from being the offensive coordinator with Aaron Rodgers.
That's right.
So he probably had a relationship with Aaron Rodgers that he knew he could give Aaron that space.
Right.
And the things that made Aaron comfortable, he wanted Aaron to have those. And I believe he brought those in to Russell Wilson. And also, let's not forget, Nathaniel Hackett was hired in order to get Aaron Rodgers there.
Right.
They thought they would make that trade. They settled with Russell Wilson. But I believe 100% what you said. He was told of the things that Russell Wilson was doing.
Right.
He understood he had a Drew Brees, and Drew Brees was someone that he didn't allow to do those things. And he wanted to set the tone immediately, right? He wanted to say it in the press conference, walk in the building and doing it. And that's fine. But if a man, right, Stephen A., if I'm coming on First Take and you've heard all of these things about me, and as soon as you see me, you say, look, RC, this is the way this show is run. This is how you fit in. And from the day I walk on set, I do what you ask me to do.
Yes, sir.
I behave in a professional manner as you ask me to. You may not ever like me or champion me or think I should be the guy on the show, but you'd respect me.
Right. And he should have
showed
respected
no
Wilson.
respect.
He showed no respect. Let me transition to you, because I've been waiting to talk to you for a while about you. Can't say how proud enough about how proud I am of you and all that you've accomplished. First of all, I'm incredibly ecstatic. You were talking to me during the negotiations with ESPN. I was like, don't leave. Damn it, don't leave. I want my boy here with me.
Hey, and by the way, too, I just want to tell
Sure.
you, I appreciate that more than you know. You know, in this business, you don't necessarily always have people who are for you. And you having set the tone as the OG for all of us, it means a lot when you're reaching out. It means a lot when you'll be a voice, because so many times people don't want to see everybody come up.
No.
And since I've been here, you've been that for me, so I do want to say thank you.
Man, please, I appreciate you, my brother. You know I love you and I respect the hell out of you. I want to know, as you sit here today and you look at where you are, yeah, you've re-signed with ESPN, got the Pivot podcast, it's big time. We all watch it with you and Shannon and Fred Taylor. Y'all do a phenomenal job. So proud of y'all for that. You was hosting Inside the NFL. You do so many different things for ESPN. How are you feeling about you and where you are at this moment in time? Because you see a lot of videos, you talk a lot about your life, and you give a lot of advice and you provide a lot of perspective. But where are you really at right now?
You know what? I feel good. I'm a lot less tired than I was during the season. Like, during the season taught me a lot, Stephen A., because, you know, when I look at you, you're someone, like in football, you have people you model your game after because you're like, okay, these are some of the things I could do. I look at you and I try to take from what you've done and the hard work you've put in, how can I implement some of these things to continue to grow in this business? Because I come from a football background. Right. And so in watching, I was like, man, he just grinds. Like, he'll do every show, he'll work. And so I kind of took that on. But this year I had to learn, Stephen, I got to take care of myself too.
Right.
You know, like hopping on red eyes and hopping on jets and then going to see my son play, like it did wear me down. And in some of that getting worn down, you have less tolerance for people. And if you're working hard, right, and I'm traveling, then I'm expecting everybody who's around a building, who's communicating with me, to be the same way. And so I had to learn, like, to deal with that and deal with that with grace. But I feel good about where I am. But in negotiations, you know how it is. Like, you realize, oh, so you still think that. So I still have to disprove that. I still have to work harder to show you I deserve this. And so it was great. I think I've come a long way, and I'm really blessed to be here, and I'm excited to work forward. But there's still so much more I want to accomplish and so much more I want to do. But the thing I've learned, you know, watching you, watching other people who are great at this job, is to do things I'm passionate about.
Right.
Don't let people just try to put me in a box and say, this is who you are, this is what you have to do. Because when you're passionate about something, it shows. When I sit down on your show, the energy shows because I'm in a place of comfort, a place I want to be, and I want to do more things that bring that out of me.
You're absolutely right, and I'll tell you this much too. First of all, in returning the favor, reciprocating, you've taught me a lot too, and you've helped me immensely because you used to get on me about my health all the time.
Yeah.
You saw me, you saw how fat. I mean, I look at my face now from a year ago. I'm like, that look like the Pillsbury Doughboy. I was like, what the hell is going on here? Yeah. You know, I was sitting there eating cereal, eating hot dogs. You know, you were like, what the hell are you doing? You got to get it.
Kill yourself.
You're gonna kill yourself. And that's when I was running and on the grind like that, and I had to take care of myself, especially after COVID, looking at the travel schedule and all. I like, yo, ain't no wealth without health. Yep. You got to take care of yourself. So I totally feel you on that. But I will throw this your way. When I watched you and I talked, and we don't have to get into all the particulars, but when I watched you and I talked, the one piece of advice that I wanted to give you, and we talked about it a little bit, but I let you be because by that time the momentum was struggling. You got to leave it alone. That's your business. But I was saying to myself, it don't matter how great you are. It don't matter how productive you are. When you go to a negotiating table, they are always going to try to get the most.
You told me that.
For the least.
You told me that.
So to me, it's like, it's me, it's you, and it's everybody in between. I don't give a damn what network it is. I don't give a damn what business it is. I've never seen, in my lifetime, I've never seen anybody roll up on me at the negotiating table. You know what? You're phenomenal. And you deserve this here.
Yeah.
It has always been a fight. And so I'm wondering, when I saw you speaking, was it that fight?
Yeah.
Or was it the fatigue as well that you just alluded to?
So it wasn't the fatigue because that's where I lock in. You know, that's part of what I'm doing this offseason, why I went back, trained, and started to do those things. And I said it this morning on a post. It's like when Apollo took Rocky back to the hood, right? Remember he walked in and all them brothers was looking at him?
Right.
Like sometimes you got to remember where you come from. And don't get me wrong, man, you know, one of the things that I'll mention, you know, I can say it out loud because it's you, is like when you share with me some of the business moves you're making or some of the things you want, because I'm like, oh, that means he sees me as somebody who he's trying to help move forward in the business.
That's exactly
that
what
he thinks I'm worthy of listening to these certain things. So I appreciate that. And so for me, it wasn't the fatigue, but it was setting a goal, right, of effort, of work, of production, of success, accomplishing that goal, and now being able to sit at the table and say those things. I didn't mind that it was still a negotiation because I understand what side they're coming from. But this is the first time I felt like I could sit in my chair, poke my chest out, and say, here is what I've done. Here are the numbers. Here's the amount of work. Here's what happens when I'm on each show. Here's how I make everybody better. And I know that they're not tapped into everything. Here's the segment I produced on this show. Here's what I told them I'd do to help this show. And so I was able to communicate all of those things. And the one thing I wanted to stand on was if I decided to come back, if I signed a deal, I wanted to walk into work and feel respected, not loved. I didn't even care about valued. I wanted to be respected. And so that's why it took so long to get it done, because I wanted to feel that.
Well, you do understand that when it comes to you, that might be one of the silliest things you ever said, because it is impossible to be around you and not respect you. It's impossible. I mean, it's impossible to not know that you contribute to making all of us better. Anybody that works with you know that it's a better production when you're on than when you are not. That's a given. And I ask this question now because as you sit up here and you move forward with your career and you move forward with the podcast and other things, what are you enjoying the most? What do you find yourself wanting to do down the line? Because now we saw you as an NFL analyst, and we know how brilliant you are at that, and you're a Super Bowl champion, you're very knowledgeable about your sport. But we've seen you host as well. We see that you can do that. We've seen you be a pundit. We know you can do that. We've seen you damn near give motivational pep talk, whether it's Swagoo on Get Up or playmaker Michael Irvin on First Take with me last year. All of this other stuff. I mean, there's nothing. But again, you talked about enjoyment. So what is it now at this point in time in your life that you see and you would classify as enjoyable to you?
The first thing you said, though, is the pivot, right? And I say that because ownership is important, Stephen A., right? The ability to control what I create is important. But also, when I got in this business as an analyst, I remember my first couple years, like I didn't show that personality. I didn't have a lot of fun because I was like, everybody got to know how smart I am.
Right.
I have to prove to people that I have a level of intelligence that says it's warranted to have me on this desk. And then eventually I moved into the fact, I can just relax and be myself. I work hard, I study. But when you're sitting down with people, like to sit down with you at your house, and to have a Stephen A. Smith be comfortable enough to share some of the things you share and opened up, and to have people say to me, man, watching Stephen A. on First Take, I really didn't know about dude, but seeing him on your show and the way that he opened up, like he's a cool cat. And I was like, well, I've been telling y'all that. But to be able to give people that platform, to be able to create that, so I want to do more of that and step outside of the sports realm, step outside of just the entertainment realm. I want to continue to inspire people. I want to continue to educate people. And I don't think it always has to be those who are extremely successful. I believe there are more stories that we could tell, and I want to reach out and do that. And it's from the analyst standpoint, Stephen A., I love being an analyst. And I'm going to be honest to you, for me.
So do I.
Yeah, for me, it's the competitiveness in it, right? I don't, and this is no disrespect to anybody, I always want to be on the A team. If I'm sitting on First Take and it's you and it's Shannon, I understand what it is. It's go time, right? I'm not going to be the dude where they like, Shannon killed it, Stephen A. killed it, we don't know if we can have RC back with them. He kind of got left behind. And then if I'm on the air and it's not the A team, I want everybody to know it's not the A team. I want everybody to know that that dude's different than the people he's sitting with. And so I love that. But just from my standpoint, I want to tell the stories I want to tell. I want to do the things that are important to me that I feel like impact people in whatever way that
But
is.
how are you working that out? Because listen to what you just said. I know how highly competitive you are. So am I. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
First Take, y'all come. I'm like, it's Stephen A. against the world. Let's go. You say, by the way, the only reason you don't have your own day because you're too damn busy. If it was just your schedule, that's your fault. You're supposed to have your own day. I have no problem with that. But I look at it and I say, okay, on one hand, you're interviewing somebody and you provide a lot of teachable moments, a lot of inspirational moments. On another hand, we'll see you on First Take, NFL Live, Get Up, or whatever. You got to call it like you see it. And you slicing and dicing and dissecting somebody that ain't going to absorb it like it's motivational. How challenging has that become for you because you have the pivot, and the pivot seems to be not opposite, but it seems to be a different position than the commentary that you provide throughout the week?
It's so crazy you asked that question. I saw a guy this weekend at the fight who we had on the show. And it was the off season. It was before this season. I was really looking forward to this person having a great season. I thought they would have a great season.
And they didn't.
And they didn't. And so once the off season came and during the season, I had to criticize them. I had to give an unbiased opinion, even though I liked the person. I saw him at the fight. I was excited to see him. I went to shake his hand. He's like, "What's up, RC?" and walks past me.
Wow.
And that was the first time it hit me, Stephen A., is that when they sit down with you in those moments and you do provide advice or you do provide a certain space, it builds a relationship and a friendship or just an acquaintanceship that they feel, okay, we have some sort of synergy. And now when I'm doing that job in the way that I do it, and I'm being honest and I'm unashamed to be myself and to speak what I see on film, they don't always take that as that's just another analyst. That's the dude that I gave an hour and a half of my free time in the off season to sit with. That's the dude that chopped it up with me. That's the dude that I text messaged to get this done. And now you're gonna talk about me like that. I'll be honest, that was the first time I ever really evaluated, like, man, am I going about this in the wrong way? That was difficult for me.
I was getting ready to ask you how you felt and what did you do when he stepped past you like that? What did you do?
Yeah, I let him go. What am I going to say? Because the other thing I don't want to do is for me to assume that they have a feeling. And it's not, right? Now I walk up on them and now I become that guy that's sensitive to how people speak to me, to thinking that people, and they're like, oh, he thinks that we have to act a certain way. So I didn't want to do that. But it immediately brought me back to things I'd said about it.
Right.
And it had me going through the memory banks of, okay, did you ever get disrespectful?
Right.
Did you ever call for their job? And it was all those things that I was running through. And you know how it is. Sometimes, like, people just feel betrayed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I
You
go
know?
through it all the time.
Right. People feel like
Yeah.
we had a relationship where that shouldn't be it. And you probably didn't see it. I know you're extremely busy. I put out a tweet this weekend.
Okay.
And the tweet said, if I'm on ESPN, I am doing a job. I said, nothing that I say there is personal.
Right.
It's about watching the film and doing my best to bring that to you in an entertaining way.
But you forgot what I told you. If you remember, we spoke about it earlier on. This is a few years ago.
Okay.
And you asked me, you literally asked me, how do you go talk to these cats when you talk about them this way? And I said to you, A, it's never personal, unless I say so. You know, there's a couple of people, the person, I let them know beforehand. Yeah, I don't like you.
Tad Prescott.
You know what I'm saying? Well, that's him yesterday. I don't dislike him. I just think that was an idiotic thing for him to do. But that's neither here nor there. But then I've said, this is what I've said. Your personal life is your business.
Yep.
It is your story to tell. I will never violate that. As long as you stay out of the police blotters, I got nothing to say. It's none of my business. But what you do on the field or court of play in front of the masses, I have to call it like I see it, because if I don't, the credibility is in question, and I can't do what you might need me to do down the road.
Yep.
I told you that years ago. And to me, as long as you make sure that, whether they like you or dislike you, you can't worry about it, because they're essentially, the equivalent of what they're asking you to do is you asking them not to catch a touchdown pass or make a tackle or hit a jump shot or make a dunk or something. I'm not asking you not to do your job. Don't ask me not to do mine. That's me.
No, I totally agree with you, but it was still that reality check for me, because you have to remember I played.
Yeah.
Right? And so in playing, I do feel sometimes there's something that's expected from us is different. It's almost like the black community.
That's right.
Right?
Oh, yes.
So anytime we criticize a black player's actual play, we're selling out. We're Uncle Tom, we're Coon. And it's like, no, you didn't watch the film.
That's right.
We're talking about the film, not the person. And so I did have to go back to that conversation, because I remember it, and say to myself, I'm just talking about what's on the film. The way that they take it is their own personal story. It's what they're dealing with. It's what they're going through, not what I've done, because I didn't get disrespectful. I didn't step out of line. But I do believe that every now and then we have to check ourselves, because as you continue to rise to success in media, I don't ever want to get drunk off of the platform. I don't ever want to forget what it was like coming in, working on First Take back in the day when you guys would give me a segment, or when you would let me come on as a player, how much I wanted to do this job then, how much I would have given anything to be in this position I'm in now, and the way I want to do this job.
So with all of that being said, as we sit here right now and you recognize all of the nuances that come with where you were compared to where you are now, as we move forward, as Ryan Clark moves forward, as we move forward watching him and enjoying his work, what are we going to see in the future from you that we haven't seen already?
I think the biggest thing is I'm going to be the exact same. And you know why? Because I ain't never been fake. I talked about this a few times. I remember 2016, 2017, Stephen A. There were times we'd be in production meetings for NFL Live, and they'd ask me things about the protests, or ask me things about what the president had said, and I would tell them what I was going to say, and they'd ask me, are you going to say that on TV? And I'd be like, yes. And they'd say, well, we're not going to put you on. We're not going to ask you that question.
Wow.
Fast forward to 2020, and there are days when I'm not even working. And I'm getting calls, can you pop on Get Up? Can you pop on Live? Your voice is so needed. People are calling me after my hits and saying that's exactly what we needed. We needed that point of view. And I was able to say in that moment, this is the same point of view I had 4 years ago when you wouldn't ask me those questions.
That's right.
And that to me taught me a valuable lesson, that if I'm always myself, if I'm always in a place where I can look in the mirror and respect who I am, then I'm in the right place. The way that people take it is their subjective opinion, and I can never be moved by those.
And you remember, it ain't never happened to me. I ain't never tell you not to say anything.
No.
Not a damn time.
You see what show I didn't say, though. Like, you see what show I didn't say. But it was, though, but it was some of those shows who other people were in control of. And Looking back at it, on it though, I'm so excited and I'm so happy and proud that I didn't bend because of that.
Right.
That it wasn't like, no, I want to be a star, no, I have to be on TV.
Last question. Is that the advice you would give to former contemporaries in the NFL that now want to get into business? Because what I would say before you answer the question is, everybody can't be RC.
Yeah.
Everybody don't study the way you study. Everybody's not as passionate or as conscientious as you are. Everybody isn't as competitive as you are. And damn it, even the ones that are, some don't have the ability to be you. So when you're giving advice moving forward, what do you say to those cats that are former professional athletes, particularly in the NFL, that want to be the next RC?
First thing is do the work, period. If you don't do the work, you can't be great. You're talking about not everybody can be RC. You also got to realize the people you work with, right? I'm on TV with people who wrote for 20 years first, who had to come up out the mud and get it to get in this position, whether they played ball or not. So if I don't come prepared, one, I don't earn their respect. Two, I can't stand in front of the same cameras they're standing in front of. So that's the first thing. My second thing would be to be authentic, to be yourself. But let's be real, Stephen A. Everybody ain't real.
Right.
Not everybody cares about keeping it 100.
We deal with it
right?
every day.
There are dudes that will build a character based on something that they believe will make them famous.
Yeah. And make them money.
Make them money. They'll turn this into the WWE. Right? It don't matter who I truly am. If that's what people will allow me to do to get on TV, I'll do it. And some of those same people talk about me and you all the time.
That's right.
Right? And if you gotta be that, if that's what's in your heart, I can't give you advice because I don't know that route. So my biggest thing, man, is do the work, be authentic, but every decision you make the decision based on your priorities. My priority was always to be able to respect myself. So I never made a decision that was outside of that.
Not being on brand like you and I have both accused other people of being.
Oh, you know what it is.
My brother.
Appreciate you, my boy.
Love you, my man.
Love you, my boy.
The one and only Ryan Clark right here with Stephen A. Smith.